Hello, welcome back to the Insurance Voice of South Texas. My name is Tom with Crandall and Associates Insurance, and I'm a member of the Independent Insurance Agents of San Antonio. Today we have Nicole Limpert here with Evolve MGA with us. Nicole is a second-generation insurance professional from Allen, Texas, known as the Mecca of high school football. She went to the University of Arkansas and afterwards started her career on the agency side. While working in the benefits space, she heard from a friend about this interesting line of coverage called cyber insurance and became intrigued. She now serves as the cyber production underwriter from Evolve. From startup ventures to publicly traded companies, Evolve helps to identify, manage, and transfer commercial cyber risk. Nicole is responsible for underwriting new cyber risks, establishing and maintaining broker relationships throughout the Southeast, and conducting educational style presentations to teach insurance professionals on the complex cyber landscape. Nicole, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
As a second generation insurance professional myself, which family member is in insurance for you as well?
It was my dad's side.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. As most people know here in San Antonio, I work for my mother, so. Anyways, again, thank you for being here talking to us about cyber liability. Now anybody in the insurance industry knows that the market in general is just crazy right now. What are you seeing on your end for the cyber market?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely crazy. All across the board, we're seeing rate hikes and stricter underwriting requirements. It's kind of interesting to see on a carrier by carrier basis which one they're really focusing on, if not both. But when the first couple of cyber markets got into this space, it was kind of a free-for-all. So we're seeing it really tighten up based upon claims data, which a lot of markets really didn't have at first because this line of coverage is still relatively new. So we're having to make some adjustments based upon some of the losses that have really gone rampant over the past year or so.
Gotcha. And speaking to that, what kind of claims trends are you guys seeing?
In terms of claims, it really is ransomware all the way. These attacks have always been very common, but with COVID and the working from home environment, it really gave hackers a lot more to work with. When remote work first began, a lot of business owners had to make quick decisions on how to get their employees operational from an at-home standpoint, which obviously, should be the number one priority. But what many didn't think about is the long-term implications those decisions had on their network security, because by granting all of these employees remote access points, it created what I like to call kind of a kid in a candy store type of scenario, to where there are now millions of these remote ports brought online with inadequate securities. And that's how hackers do their attacks. They do them remotely. So it gave them a lot more opportunity to overtake these remote ports and spread those ransomware viruses.
Yeah, as an agent myself, definitely in the work from home has exacerbated that tremendously. And I know a lot of carriers have started talking about multi-factor authentication and how that's one of the best ways to protect yourself from ransomware. But I've even seen some carriers so far as to require it in order to even purchase coverage. What is Evolve's stance on that, and where do you see that going in the future?
Yeah, MFA, that's the new buzzword in the cyberspace. So fun. It really is, though, one of the easiest ways to protect against hack attacks, because one, it is usually very simple to turn on, depending on the complexity of the business, of course. And two, it really does stop hackers in their tracks. It's very uncommon, although not impossible, for hackers to overtake two different devices. And that's what multi-factor authentication does. It requires you to verify on two different devices that it truly is you. So like I said, for hackers to overtake your computer and your personal cell phone, it's very uncommon. But at Evolve specifically, we currently do require it for businesses over 100 million in gross annual revenue. Our data really shows once you get to that threshold, that's where the claims can turn pretty gnarly in terms of, the restoration, business interruption, et cetera. I can't confidently say that this will never be a blanket requirement for our small to mid-size accounts. Currently, it's not at the moment, but as business owners become more and more educated in this space, we are starting to see it become more common, which is great and hopefully would make the underwriting requirements a bit easier moving forward into the future. Has it been, I know, sorry, this is supposed to be asking me questions, but for you, Tom, has it been difficult to try and explain to your insureds, what MFA is and why it's so important to turn on?
I don't think it's hard to explain to them what it is. A lot of banks are starting to do that. Any type of financial, like retirement plans and stuff, most of those websites are requiring MFA now too. And if you have an Apple device, you have to do it regardless. But I think what scares people is not knowing like what the cost of it is. Because I know that you guys gave a presentation at one point, and I can't remember the percentage, but like it said if somebody implemented MFA, like it would reduce their exposure to a loss by like, what was it, 300 or something percent?
Yeah, so Microsoft and Google, they both came out with reports actually on MFA, and Microsoft stated that turning on MFA can block over 99.9% of compromise attacks. And then Google's numbers were it would block 95% of bulk phishing attacks. So kind of that spray and pray, you're just kind of going out to a wide range of individuals, and over 75% of targeted attacks where hackers know exactly who they're going after. So it is very, very effective in protecting against these types of losses.
Yeah, definitely. And once I heard that from you guys, I was like, you know what, this is it. Like I've got to at least look into it. And it was not expensive for us. It was I think it was $4 per user per month. And one of my employees' biggest concerns were like, well, am I going to have to enter this code every time I log in? And for us, it actually worked out to where it was just like an approve or deny button. So all of my employees were super excited about that. But I think that's what it is. I think our clients don't understand, like it's probably relatively inexpensive, and it's really not that big of a hassle when it comes to your employees. But I know I've certainly talked about it with a lot of my clients lately, like, hey, look, you need to slate this for, 2022 or something, and start looking into it, because I have a feeling, just seeing what I'm seeing on my end, that will eventually become the norm. It's almost like having a burglar alarm system now, right?
Yeah, you weigh the upfront cost of implementing it versus, an attack down the line. It's kind of a no-brainer at that point.
Oh, absolutely. All the stress, all of the hassle you have to do if you're breached. Oh man, don't even want to think about it. What is one thing that you wish you could tell agents about cyber?
This is a tough one. But I think I would just say, don't be scared to bring it up. When I first got into the cyberspace, it wasn't really a conversation that a lot of agents wanted to have at the time. I think many people are worried about, kind of getting caught in a rabbit hole, but you can really lean on your carrier partners to help out with this. Cyber is obviously a completely different beast than any other line of coverage, so it can be complex sometimes, but the worser option is that you never discuss it. Your client ends up having a huge loss, and, possibly they can't recover from that. Obviously worst case scenario, but having the discussion, even if they aren't going to purchase, is still really important to at least just leave it in your insured's hand to, make that educated decision on their end if they want it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely tell you, as an agent, I have been in the situation where I try to sell cyber to my clients, and then 4 or 5 months later they get hacked, and it is the worst in the world.
You did your job there. So
yeah, exactly. And I'll reiterate too, definitely lean on those carrier partners. For what I've found in cyber is that they pretty much cover the same things, but everybody calls them different items, and so it confuses the heck out of you. But utilizing those carrier relationships can definitely help there. And what's the one thing you wish you could tell business owners who don't carry cyber currently?
I would probably say buy it. That is probably my number one piece of advice. But no, I think it is just tough sometimes to truly emphasize, what actually can be covered under these policies. many individuals, whether they be agents or business owners, still kind of think of cyber policies as a data breach coverage, but it has completely evolved from that. You can receive reimbursements for the loss of customers post attack. You can cover your own personal bank account from cyber losses. You can even receive cover to replace your entire computer hardware. So I think there's just an education gap at the moment, but eventually that'll become less and less as agents continue to push it and also as hack attacks continue to rise.
Yeah, definitely. And let me ask this too. Are there any claims examples you could give us, or maybe that you guys have available to help sell coverage in the field?
Yeah, I think that just talking through the top two attacks that we see, ransomware and fraudulent transfers, is one of the easiest ways to bring up cyber, because, if you just slap a piece of paper in front of someone and it has, business interruption, social engineering, all of these confusing terms in front of them, they may not truly understand what is actually going to be covered. So, walking through ransomware, how it's a computer virus, it gets downloaded onto your system and essentially holds your data hostage. The way that these occurs are through, phishing links. It really comes down to human error. I would always ask your client if they've ever received one of those fake emails before, because that is an attempted cyber attack. You can usually follow that up with, do you think anyone in your office would click on something like this? Because usually their mind will go to, the one or two individuals that aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. It might get them sweating a little bit. But just walking through with the policy, okay, with a ransomware attack, you'll see that initial incident response be triggered, the IT forensics, the legal, the notification, paying that actual extortion demand and any lost income that comes along with it, the business interruption, reputational harm. Maybe you lost some customers because you had to notify them you lost their information, or maybe you missed out on some deadlines because you were down for an extended period of time. Ransomware, like I said, is the number one attack that we're seeing. And then second to that, it's the fraudulent transfers, the social engineering, someone just posing as one of your trusted third parties, an internal employee, a vendor, a customer, and stating that they have new banking information. Then you have that payment sent out the door. I know that did actually happen to a school district just outside of Austin a couple of years ago, to where they ended up sending out $2.3 million to a hacker's bank account. So huge loss. Cyber losses, they're felt immediately, and they can be very large. And for those small to mid-sized businesses, they usually don't have the cash flow on hand to sustain those types of losses. We have seen time and time again where businesses have to shut their doors. And again, that's worst case scenario, but it does happen.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's really hard for anybody these days to say that they don't know anybody that hasn't been affected by some type of ransomware or social engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but I think that from the perspective of a business owner, the way that I've kind of tried to tell them about it is, okay, let's take this. If you're in ransomware for 2 days and you're down for 2-3 days, how much are you just spending into payroll for the employees that cannot work? I could almost guarantee that it would be more than what an annual cyber premium would be.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's almost a guarantee at this point that a business is going to experience some sort of attack. It's just whether they have the good controls, on the front end and a good cyber policy sitting behind them on a back end to see if it's going to be, something that's detrimental long term.
Right. Or something that's just going to be a little feel like something like a slap on the wrist, and they can just go back, to what they were doing beforehand.
You're going to hope that it's the second scenario.
Yes, exactly. Oh, well, Nicole, thank you so very much for joining us today and all of your insights. We really do appreciate it. We will have your contact information at the end of the presentation for anyone who has any questions. And to all of our listeners and viewers, thank you so much for listening in or watching us today. We hope that we provided you with some great information to take back to your clients, and be sure to keep an eye out for the next episode. Thanks so much.
Thanks.